Hello and welcome to the monthly What's New in AWS presented by Enterprise Support. We have another action-packed episode this month. Really looking forward to covering some releases that we've gone ahead with. I'll welcome Graham and Simon on, if you don't mind adding them in. Simon, gents, how you doing?
Very well. How
Hey,
are you, Matt?
Very, very good. I'm super excited to see what you guys have lined up for us. We're going to cover a few topics. We're going to cover AI ML this month. We're going to look at security and networking. And lastly, Graham, I think you and I are going to touch on some compute and databases as well.
yep, lots and lots of releases, lots from SageMaker this month as well.
Oh, nice. Nice. I'm looking forward to it. How about we get stuck in and then we will loop back right at the end and see how we landed. Graham, I might leave you and Tom. Tom, I might invite you in as well. And we'll see what's happening in the wonderful world of AI and ML.
Hi,
Thanks, Matt.
everyone. Thank you.
Welcome on, Tom.
Thank
Everybody, welcome
you.
to the stage. Tom Liu, one of our artificial intelligence and machine learning specialists in the TAM world here at AWS. Thanks for joining me today, Tom.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me. Yeah.
First up, we are going to talk about SageMaker Autopilot,
Yep.
low-code machine learning service which automatically builds, trains, and tunes the best machine learning models based on your data. Tom, can you tell us what's new from SageMaker Autopilot?
Sure, certainly. Thanks. SageMaker Autopilot, now it allows customers to select underlying training algorithms when they're creating an autopilot experiment. Like before that, like pretty much customer can choose like an auto or menu selections of the training methods. Pretty much is kind of hyperparameter optimizations of ensembling. But that doesn't allow customer to choose like what they prefer underneath on those algorithms. Like for example, ensembling would provide 8 algorithms. If you don't choose, potentially services to run through all of them and then do a stacking and doing the ensembling for getting the best model for customer. But use case wise, customers sometimes know their data so well and they can make a choice like whether they're going to do specific algorithm only, such as like boosting trees algorithms or so. Yeah. So that's the beauty of that.
Awesome. So I guess what you're saying is that this is giving customers more flexibility and control?
Definitely. And it potentially make customers' life easier because like for example, if they don't require to like if the data sets mean to be not really suitable for like a neural network style, then when customer choose like hyperparameter tuning or optimization options, they don't need to bother using MLP, which is like multi-layer perceptron or so. And also with the platform itself, with like choosing your preferred algorithm, potentially you can train your model faster, and definitely you get a better result faster also. Yeah.
I see. So this ability to select allows customers and data scientists, I guess, to leverage their specialist skill sets. If they know that certain algorithms are redundant or irrelevant, they'll be able to exclude them. If they want it to focus on certain ones, I presume they'll be able to get it to prioritize those ones as well. Is that the case?
Yeah, definitely. You're right.
Excellent. Sounds like it'll be a real boost in accelerating their work there.
Yeah, AutoML is gaining great traction from data scientist team, especially the time and resources wise. Data scientists or ML engineer, potentially they're super expensive. Having a very capable managed AutoML services like Autopilot, I think is a blast in the community. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I guess for customers who are learning artificial intelligence and machine learning, as they become more experienced on the platform and they learn the advantages of various algorithms, they'll be able to progress onto these types of features and take advantage of them as they mature. Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Let's move on to the next announcement now. It's another release for the SageMaker service. This one is allowing users to launch the model monitor from Model Dashboard.
Yes, that's right. Maybe it will be great for me to give a bit background on what they are, and then start talking about why it is important also. In real life, data scientists train a model. Potentially, they want to serve the business purpose, and deploying to a production environment to serve, real life data can be very fragile in some of the scenario that real life data change dramatically, such as nowadays high interest rates kind of definitely change a lot of housing prediction models, right? And to monitor that is non-trivial. With SageMaker Model Monitor, it's a managed services to help customer to tackle those data drifting, model quality bias, or feature attribution drifting problem. And on the other hand, Model Dashboard pretty much is a recently released new ML governance services in last reInvent, which is 2022 reInvent. And the beauty on this service is it's a kind of provide essential pane of glass for customer to view and search and explore potentially their deployed model, and it integrate with model monitoring. It has some sort of like a visualization to help customer easier to understand whether they have sort of drifting on the deployed model in their environment or so. It's pretty convenient and very sophisticated for customer. Yeah.
Nice. So it's providing users a fast way to get visibility on the performance of their models, right?
Definitely. And fast in the sense that there are two level. One is from the creation perspective. Uh, Previously, customer potentially need to know a bit on API call, like using our SDK or so. And now with the new feature, you potentially can just hop on into our SageMaker model dashboard console and use some sort of click, and then you can create more model monitor also. And on the other hand, it's very accessible. Now we have central pane of glass that customer can easily, understand the detail of that. So this is really improve customers' productivity and visibility.
Sounds great. And I guess this also allows separation of duties. You could have data scientists creating code for the models, and then you could have some machine learning operations teams looking after the model performance when it's in production.
Yes, certainly. And especially if the model being deployed with our services, for example, SageMaker Inference Endpoint, and then you can use the new feature to create it in a pretty lightweight manner without API call. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. In a former life, I worked with artificial intelligence and machine learning models doing feature extraction on geospatial point data. And having firsthand experience doing DevOps on machine learning, I can say anything that makes this process simpler, more efficient, and even better, something that I can do in a UI, it's like a dream come true.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I haven't know that you've done some sort of great job on that domain. And at last, I also want to mention that on the other hand, sometimes data scientists or ML engineer, they keen to set up sort of automation such as CI/CD pipeline to form their ML operations practices also. Then with those kind of setting, potentially they will automate the model monitor creations. Definitely, we have the SDK to support that feature.
Wonderful. Thanks, Tom. Our last AI ML release for today is about generative AI. And we're all hearing about generative AI in the news. But Tom, could you give our audience a brief description of what generative AI is?
Yes, certainly. Yeah, this is one of my favorite topics. So generative AI is a kind of artificial intelligence techniques that being used to generate content. It start from those large language model, and you can potentially use it to generate text content or so. And on the other hand, generative AI applications, it can perform a variety of tasks that including text summarizations, answering questions, code generation, image generation. For example, stable diffusion, or the other cloud providers or AI service provider, they provide you potentially you can generate use some prompt to ask question and generate image or generate documents or so. Yeah, that is how it is.
Right. So it's one of those things where you give it a text prompt and it will then create content for you, whether that's
right.
more text in the form of a document or some sort of reply, or also imagery.
That's right. Yeah, it's kind of magic, but it's pretty advanced nowadays. It's really hard to believe like 5 years ago. Yeah, I mean,
For
from the
sure.
application perspective. Yeah.
So how about our latest announcement today?
Yeah, this is a very great, collaboration relationship between AWS and Hugging Face. Like pretty much like these kind of relationship, we work close together to support customer to do like those generative AI training, fine tuning, and deployment, uh, especially including those large language and vision models. And on top of that, it also make it easier for our developers to access, underneath services such as AWS managed services, SageMaker, or the underneath hardware such as the purpose-built trainiums or like inferentiate those chips for large language model or vision model training. Yeah, so it's pretty much like we work closer together to support the film to make those AI, generative AI application more achievable and potentially cost efficient. Yeah.
Great. So I guess the summary would be that our developers who are using Hugging Face will be able to easily optimize their performance and lower their cost, bringing
Yes.
generative AI applications to production faster.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And also like accessibility wise, like nowadays you can use SageMaker Jumpstart services, which is like a one-stop ML solution services or so. And there are so many different kind of template to serve different, business purpose. And on top of that, nowadays, like Hugging Face models pretty much available in Jumpstart. You can easily start, working on your model prototyping and retrieving Hugging Face model via SageMaker Jumpstart. And of course, if you are working on like you're a data scientist practitioner and you're working on like model training specific, we have the deep learning, like Hugging Face deep learning container to support you. Pretty much those containers are fine-tuned on running on our platform, like GPU machine or like a Trainium, those like ARM-based machine or so. So it's pretty easy, access for those practitioners also. And on top of that, like we also provide like tutorials for our customer to use our sort of like neuron frameworks. Neuron frameworks purpose being built like a open source framework to support the film who are using such as those popular deep learning framework, PyTorch or TensorFlow or so, to wrap up with neuron framework so that they can leverage the ARM-based chips for improve their efficiency on the model training part. Yeah, so these are the three areas with this enhanced collaboration. It will benefit customer or users or developers a lot while doing generative AI model training on cloud.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tom, for your fantastic insights into our artificial intelligence and machine learning releases for this month. I'm going to hand over to our next host, Simon Lee, and his guest, Luis Vargas, to talk about the latest in security and networking. Over to you, Simon.
Thank you, Graham. I love how, generative AI is just almost like magic. Hey, Luis, welcome. First time on the
Thank you,
stream,
Simon.
I think.
Thank you for inviting me. Very happy to be here with you guys and
no problem.
Getting to the network and security networking things.
Glad to have you. So, Luis, what are we going to talk about today first?
Well, we're going to focus on security this time around on some announcements we have in Amazon Detective. I'm aware some of our customers or AWS users don't know what Amazon Detective is. So just to give a very brief overlook, Amazon Detective is a tool that complements very well tools like GuardDuty for security findings. It collects data from several sources and using machine learning provides a very, very thought model on how to investigate and action this data. It's basically to conduct and assist faster investigations. The way it works is, as we can see from the screen, is grabs logs from different sources, and by machine learning, it will provide an excellent view on how to action this. So to make it so more practical and maybe a little bit more interactive with you guys, would you mind, Simon, if we jump into your console and give it a go?
Absolutely. I have a pretty compromised, environment here. Obviously, it's a testing environment. So where do we start with this? Should we go to guard duty to look at the findings and then go to detective and see, how detective will help our customers?
Absolutely. You could always access Amazon Detective directly on the search bar or through services, but excellent to follow a trail and give a practical example. Let's go to your guard duty, see what's going on there. So this is where all the security findings should appear, and it's an excellent point to follow through on the investigation.
Okay. Look, so we're looking at a couple of specific findings, right? Severe findings, high severity findings.
Oh yeah, I see you got a bit of cryptocurrency activities going on this environment. Let's have a look at that one.
Looks like one of my testing environment is being hijacked to mine crypto.
Oh, wow. Okay, so as you guys can see here, Simon just clicked on Investigate with Detective. This is where once you enable Amazon Detective from the services, this will appear and it will give you a trail to follow. For instance, if we click on Easy to Instance on the ID there, it's going to send us to Amazon Detective directly, so we can follow the investigation, or we can check on AWS accounts, IP addresses, and whatnot. But for the sake of the example, let's see what's going on that Easy to Instance through Detective.
Yeah, it opened a new tab, but let's go into the Detective here directly. Perfect. And then maybe we can go into this first. I know something that we've announced for Detective is how we group together findings, and is that something that we were looking to look at today?
Absolutely.
So here is the EC2 instance as well.
Yep. Now that we see the overview, going into what's new in the tool, as you can see there on the right corner of every finding, for instance, where we see the traffic volume on EC2 instances, there is an export button. We are able to export all this data on CSV now, so customers can use their preferred CSV processing method or monitoring tool to gather all this information on top of EKS clusters and all potential exporting data points.
Gotcha. So, and this is brand new, isn't it? We've
absolutely.
Only just added this capability.
Just recently released. So this tool is very much being improved as we speak. So more new features will keep popping up. So we're focusing on what's going on. So there is one other very interesting feature that we just started. If you got on the left side on finding groups.
Yep.
This is where we will have the finding groups defined. And if we go, for the sake of the example, choose a finding group you like to see, we have a new feature, a new visibility feature to visualize all the data collected, which is this graph. This is a graphical representation model of all compromised and high alert, medium and low severity alerts in the environment. This model is live, so you can drag and drop elements of it. The idea is to have a graphical representation on where the associations of compromised elements are. If you go to to the bottom left, you'll be able to see legend, to see what each icon represents. And
Gotcha.
I don't know about you, Simon, but for me, it's a bit easier to see a graphical representation instead of going through hundreds of logs and finding IPs. From here, we can see one instance is doing quite a bit of things, right?
Yeah, so I think this is really helpful for someone that really needs visual aids. I only read books with pictures, so this is super helpful for me. And I can see, within this EC2 instance here, there are multiple, findings that, and vulnerabilities that might be associated with it. So, for example, I can see there's possibility of a Trojan in this EC2. There's a malicious file that was executed, a backdoor. That was the one that we were looking at, the Bitcoin mining. And then, this another malicious file here. And then I can see this one IP address is really correlating with all of these findings here. So I feel like if I'm doing an actual investigation,
yeah, absolutely. And look,
I can associate this with everything.
Yeah. No, I think I lost you there for a second. That's why I interrupted. But yeah, I mean, sometimes a single IP, several IPs doing the same thing, it's not easy to find, and this helps us. For people like us, like we like pictures, it's easier, right?
Yeah. And I can easily isolate this IP or blacklist it from the firewall level and then fix my my EC2 instance. This is really helpful. Thank you, Luis.
No worries. Just one last point on this. Whatever you on the environment changes, this will dynamically adjust. So it's definitely a great access point to be interacting.
Yeah. So if I fix something, it will disappear from this graph.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Let's
go back to the presentation.
Awesome.
And then I think there was another thing for detective that Luis, you're looking to bring to us.
Absolutely, and I think this beautifully complements what we talked about today. We have launched a new interactive workshop to investigate potential security issues. This QR code will send you directly there. But this is so you can test what we talked today and start from scratch in a safe environment, a detective deployment. We also have a 30-day trial in case you guys want to try on your test environments and whatnot. And from the page will give you pricing structures if that's of interest. But I think it helps a lot when you try and test, right?
I mean, ideally, you don't want your instances to be mining Bitcoin. So just testing it in your live environment, you might not be able to see a lot of findings. But if with this workshop, I think we will be able to simulate what a compromised environment looks like. So the team can actually prepare and in case of a real attack. This is very good. Thank you, Luis.
No worries. Hopefully
All right.
It's helpful.
Yeah, it is. I think it's really interesting. I know not a lot of our customers, at least from my knowledge, is using detective, and hopefully this will show them the benefit of this service.
Perfect. I think we have a little bit of trouble on the network, Simon. Okay, you're back.
Yeah. All right. So I think we're moving to networking.
Excellent. For networking, guys, we do have a couple of quick announcements. I think we Simon was so excited he got frozen from this. But just quickly, very, very quick, we have a new networking firewall, tag-based resource groups that we can add up. This heavily simplifies the management of your web application firewall, since you can tag EC2 instances and ENI interfaces as a resource group. So if they ever change IPs or there is any change on the environment, it dynamically will point back to it instead of going to the rule and change IPs dynamically, which I think will simplify things quite a bit. And
Lewis,
lastly,
I've been waiting for those tagged resources for a while. I'm really excited about that one on Network Firewall.
good, man.
It's just I can't help but call out that we've lost Simon while we're talking about networking. So it was just a bit of irony there that I appreciated.
I think he got too excited with the crypto.
A bit too excited. Yeah. and you got NAT Gateway. What have we got there?
Just a limit increase as a few of our customers have overlapping networks, and NAT gateways tend to be the way to ease up the connectivity between these networks. So the NAT gateway limit has increased by adding 8 possible IPs to be translated. So this brings up the limit to 440,000 concurrent connections, which was definitely an ask and quite relevant in those scenarios.
So what would that look like, Lewis? That would typically be like some kind of hub and spoke connection where you just have a network link that you've got a NAT gateway that's under high utilization. So you can just specify between those two endpoints to increase concurrent connections?
Absolutely. Or overlapping networks, same IP on both ends, and the only way to connect between them will be NAT gateway, especially if it's a heavily contested server in between. This will definitely give some breathing room there.
Very good. Very good. Was that it for networking, or did you have some more behind that slide?
That's it for today, but much more exciting things coming. And guys, I highly encourage you to ask questions or reach out to your enterprise support TAMs, and we will be very happy to help.
Thank you so much, Lewis. That was awesome. And I really liked the detective workshop as well. That deep dive was really, really good. I might get Graham to join us back if you're there, Graham, and we can dive a little bit into compute and databases.
Thanks. Hey, Matt. Good to be back.
Hey, thank you for being back. All right, let's jump in. There's a couple of releases that I wanted to really, I was really excited to touch on. Autoscaling and instance refresh. They've been around for a while, but they're one of my two favorite ones. I'm sure many viewers have used it or have seen it work, but really it's kind of part of that the pet versus cattle conversation that's been kicking around for a while. Just remind me again, Graham, like this is a world that you're well familiar in. How far do you go back when it comes to? I was thinking about sharing a story about in the old days, right? When we used to rack some tin, we'd put a 1RU box, we'd put a 2RU box in, we'd lovingly deploy it. We'd pull out, hopefully it wasn't CDs, but there'd be some kind of image that you'd boot from, and then it would log in and patch.
Have come out in a number of these episodes, Matt. Please continue.
I think so, yeah, and I should probably talk to other people about it as well, but it just reminds me of how we used to do things, and I'm not saying they were bad, I just reflect on how it's a little bit different these days.
Yeah, you do the best job you have with the resources at hand, right?
That's right. But we'll look at the releases that we're just looking at here. So instance refresh, right? So what it means is you've got auto scaling working against your workload, right? So it's scaling in, it's scaling out. Instance refresh is there just to make sure that if it needs to come in and terminate an existing resource, so we can go ahead and redeploy it. Why would you want to do that? Well, pretty simple, right? So a lot of customers leverage AMIs or their user data scripts so that they do their patching and initial deployments when the instance first launches. Oh, let me go ahead and just cancel that.
So take me through the user experience here. Like when does a user actually kick this off? When the instance is running or before they redeploy?
Yeah, you typically for instance refresh, you're typically applying it to the auto-scaling group. So you're saying, hey, this auto-scaling group, I want to either put some protections on that, for example, and say, look, this instance specifically, I don't want this auto-scaling group to go ahead and terminate it and do an instance refresh. And just kind of touching on what you said before too, Graham, looking at like rollback too, right? Rollback's now been added. So in some instances, if you did have a failure when it tried to do a scale in or a scale out event, it would just put it into a state that you then had to go ahead and clean up. But now we can go ahead and redeploy an existing version to get that workload back to where it needs to be.
Actually, that's a good point about scale in. Do you want to protect instances from scale in? Is there a reason you'd want to do that?
Yeah, there is. I mean, ultimately, it's just around unwanted terminations. So if you know something about your workload, your environment, where you're like, hey, these instances here, let's not terminate them, and let's protect them from the general scaling in, scaling out type events that are happening, that's when you would go ahead and apply that.
Is this an easy way for customers to get into, let's say, blue-green deployment? So rather than have an actual CI/CD pipeline, this is just a really light way for them to be able to start refreshing their fleet.
That's exactly right. It's a really good way to start the process of looking at your infrastructure differently. So it's really accepting, hey, when we deploy an instance, we want an instance that's got the latest patch levels, has the latest configuration, and is really ready to go from a servicing a workload standpoint. And tying that into the initial deployment of the instance really brings that patching right to the front. So you're not worried about deploying a workload, having that live, and then going ahead and patching it or doing something after the event.
Got it. Right. Thanks, Matt.
A couple more releases. So M7s, we're on the next generation now of M7G and R7G. Have you had a chance, Graham, to play with any of the Graviton and some of the latest Graviton 3 that we've just released?
Not personally, no, but I have been working with my customers who have.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So yeah, at a high level, M7G, R7G is on our new Graviton 3, right? So it's as opposed to Graviton 2, you can expect 2 times better floating point, 2 times better crypto, and 3 times better machine learning performance as well. Underneath the hood, it runs on DDR5, not DDR4, so it's a little bit faster, a little bit more efficient. But yeah, generally just another kind of generational jump when it comes to our Graviton platform.
Okay. I heard customers are moving to Graviton, but more than just for price and performance.
Yes. So something that's not as widely known, but it's Graviton for the same CPU and EC2 instance types. You're looking at about 60% less energy. So sustainability now is becoming a really key conversation when it comes to customers trying to find out what is the most efficient way to run my workload and looking at that total footprint as well.
Great. And the key question for our local audience is:
I know what you're going to ask.
Is available in Sydney or Melbourne?
Not just yet. No. So they're coming very, very shortly. I'm really excited to really talk more about the releases as they drop into Melbourne. As obviously everyone knows, Melbourne's one of our latest regions that we've just launched. So no, not in Sydney, not in Melbourne, but it's coming very soon.
Well, let's move on to an announcement that is in Melbourne. The next one.
That's right. So Lambda now supports 10 gig of ephemeral storage. I love this one. Customers every single day just absolutely blow me away with their use cases in Lambda. And seeing some of the constraints or some of the limitations around Lambda over time just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and actually not the constraints getting bigger, but the environment that Lambda can run in gets even larger. So yeah, 10 gig ephemeral storage is a bit of a game changer for a lot of people, especially people who are doing and customers that are looking at video type workloads. They're doing a lot of image processing. It really helps.
10 gig is huge. I remember thinking about using Lambda functions to do higher order math functions back in the day. This is going back more than 5 years, but bringing in Python packages like NumPy and SciPy, which were 500 meg each, it was really pushing the boundaries of what was available at the time. And 10 gigabytes is a huge step up from where we used to be.
Yeah, exactly. By the time back then, right? Again, talking about some battle scars. By the time you unpacked those libraries, got them running, you didn't have much for the actual data at that point. So it's good to see that we've got a bit more room here. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess for customers running their own containers, they may have quite large footprints, and so having this extra storage is really opening up new use cases.
Yeah, that's right. I personally haven't run any ML use cases on Lambda, but I can absolutely see, bring in a large data set, do the crunching, get the analysis, get the results, and then go ahead and do something else with that information.
Yeah, interesting. All right. Our Snow family. We've got some container support.
I do, yeah. So honorable mention here. So I'm an absolute card-carrying member of the Containerize Everything Club. It's me. I can't help myself, and I'm not really sorry either. But when I saw this, I was very happy. So our Snow family. So they're a rugged, purpose-built petabyte scale transport data into AWS platform. Many people actually remember it. I don't know whether you remember it, Graham. Back in reInvent 2016, that was the truck that we brought on stage that Andy introduced. So it's got a
very impressive.
Yeah, there was a few jaws on the floor when that truck drove out there. But so this is the platform, and what's happened. What the release now is they've just added. The team have added EKS Anywhere support into Snow. So not only do you have all of the ruggedness, the petabyte scale, but now you can run containerized workloads as well on the compute portion of that platform, which I think is pretty cool and probably opens up a few options for customers as they migrate data in and out of AWS.
Great, and this is supported by the whole family, right? So not just the Snowball devices, but also Snow Cone?
That's right. Yeah, it's across the family.
Yeah, fantastic. All right.
We might jump to databases. Yeah, couple of mentions here as well. So there is the latest RUs have been applied to 19C and 21C if you do have RDS for Oracle running in your environments. The other call out I wanted to make here as well is we've added some additional ciphers now that are going to allow customers that use OEM, Oracle Enterprise Manager, they will allow connections in from that tooling. So it's going to really give DBAs that do have their own, familiarity with their own existing tooling an opportunity now to manage some of their AWS instances through their existing tools, which I thought was a good call out as well.
Mm-hmm. And I love the plug for Blue-Green deployments now available in Melbourne. Tell us about that one.
Yeah, so RDS Blue-Green, so back to basics, what is Blue-Green deployments? It's really around building out a fully managed staging environment that allows you to deploy and do your test before you actually cut over to production. So once you've got everything validated as working, you then give it the approval, and then it does the switch over for connections. So that's now available in Melbourne. Why would you use Blue-Green? We find customers all the time use it for things such as database major and minor version upgrades, schema updates, maintenance updates, and even things such as database parameter setting changes as well. You'll run them through a full Blue-Green deployment just to make sure that the changes that you're proposing, pass all your tests.
So this one looks like it's giving customers a managed ability to do a test environment using the almost up-to-date data, right?
That's right. Yeah, it'll be syncing all the data behind the scenes, and once you hit you click the button, it's then going to start transitioning customers over, or endpoint connections over across to the new instance.
And I guess the closer you get to live production data, the better your test environment's going to get, the better quality you're going to have, and the less surprises you'll get running in production.
That's right. Yeah, no data loss with an entire new environment that's been fully tested, which I think is a pretty big call out.
Yeah, awesome.
Awesome. Well, I think that's it for this month, Graham. Thank you so much for joining me. I might welcome Simon back on if we do have him back on. I'm not sure if he's fixed his networking issues. Simon, are you there?
I am here.
Welcome
Sorry
back.
about that. Thank you for covering, Matt.
No, that's totally okay. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for a good show this month. We've got some QR codes that we've just popped up on the screen. They're some of our other shows. If you are interested, please go ahead and check them out. But otherwise, have an absolutely splendid weekend.
Thanks, everyone. See you next time.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.